Hi, this is Ashisha Bidekar, and welcome to my podcast, The ARB Show. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Sonesh. Sonesh is the CEO of CMO Outsourced. He comes with more than 2 decades of experience in B2B sales and marketing, spanning enterprise software, banking, media, and HR solutions. He has worked with many B2B startups and various SMEs as a virtual CMO to help them set up a competent marketing ecosystem from scratch. He works on achieving short term and strategic marketing objectives for his clients. He also curates a set of competent vendors, which include agencies, designers, performance marketeers, UI UX consultants, martech platforms for each of his clients based on their needs and budgets. Welcome to the show, Sonesh. Look forward to hearing your views on top 5 tips for frugal B2B marketing.
Thanks for the lovely introduction, Ashish. Looking forward to this conversation with you.
Great. So, getting straight into it, what would you say when anyone says about frugal marketing, and what would be your top 5 tips for anyone who's interested in having an effective marketing plan with the least amount of marketing budgets? Because as we know, budgets are always under squeeze, right? And marketers are always under pressure to perform and give the necessary marketing ROI. So we'd really love to hear your views on the same. Over to you, Sandesh.
Yeah. So Ashish, very pertinent question. I mean, in fact, the problem is marketing as a function is never associated with frugality. The irony is that, I mean, we are always, looked at as a cost center rather than a, revenue center or a profit center of sorts. And unfortunately, when things are, bad, the marketing budgets are one of the first to be cut. So I actually thought of, why don't we have a mindset? Why can't a marketer have a mindset that there is a zero money budget? There is a zero budget, and work from there. So, like, work from a point of view that you either have zero or very little budgets, and whether it's recession or not, you will still be able to kind of do some activity around it. I mean, I try to ask, I try not to ask the question of how much marketing budget do you have to my most of my prospects in the first call itself, unless it's absolutely necessary, based on their objectives and so on and so forth. So, so that's where this whole thought of frugality in marketing comes into play, and in B2B more so because unlike B2C, B2B is very focused and there's a very niche audience. And I, in fact, more work with clients who are even more niche. I mean, they are enterprise B2B SaaS players who are, who've got sales cycles more than 6 to 12 months long and more, depending on the, the ACVs and the kind of audience they cater to. So, in this segment, the first tip I would say is to understand the ideal customer profile. Uh, Trust me, a lot of organizations have very vague idea as to what is their ideal customer profile is, and they would probably mention an industry and a few broad designations as their ideal customer profile, but unfortunately, that is not the truth. So, in a perfect world, and that is where a lot of marketing money goes waste because the way you kind of define your profile, it also defines your marketing channels, your marketing mix, your marketing investment, and so on and so forth. However, if you do this, study a lot more scientifically to understand about your, core ICP, you will be able to, focus as well as maybe save a lot of unnecessary investment in marketing. Let me give you an example. For example, let's say if I am, talking to a company in the fintech domain, they have an enterprise SaaS solution in the fintech domain, and so far they think that they are targeting, and they have a few customers, let's say 15, 20 odd customers in the banking insurance space. Okay. While they may think that the entire, and this is something from, experience, in the past, recent past, wherein I was speaking to a prospect, and he was telling me that, you can target the entire banking sector or the insurance sector, and they will have need for this product. But when I delved deeper into this, into the, into the nitty-gritties of it, and that is when I realized that their existing customers were typically banks with not more than 4,000 employees, 4 to 5,000 employees, and insurance companies with kind of a similar kind of an employee account, and which had typically certain characteristics as to the kind of marketing stack they're using and so on and so forth. So when we actually put those points together, the ideal customer profile boiled down to maximum of 400, 500 odd companies, as compared to maybe 3,000 or 4,000 odd companies they identified, which included a list of NBFCs and whatnot. So this was primarily kind of done from their existing list of customers, which were low-hanging fruits for them. So ideally the company should have done that homework to understand their the overall technographic and demographic of their existing customer, and then replicate that in their ideal customer profile. So that's where we realized that the pain points of their existing customers could resonate more with this particular set of an audience rather than the larger universe. And that once you've understood, then you realize, okay, these are the 2, 3, 4 channels which you should focus on to reach out to this particular audience rather than doing a spray and pray.
Got it. So here also, what you said immediately brought about the aspect of frugality as well, because assume that you did not take this deep dive, right? Then if you go by the standard definition of the entire banking sector, then immediately the kind of objective or the resources required to do outreach would be different, right? Because now if you want to reach out to say 5,000 or 10,000 customers, then you may need to have a good email kind of a setup, right? And which would again cost specific. But now once you know that you just have 400, 500 qualified customers, then it kind of reduces the cost required to reach. So I perfectly see what you're getting. So after you did the frugal approach to that, how did it affect in terms of the overall ROI or in the overall opportunity for the customer?
Yeah. So while this is an ongoing initiative, what we realize is that in B2B there is a concept of buying groups, right? The sales cycles are long, 6 to 12 months, or maybe more. In this case, it could be more than 12 months also, because in the banking sector, as you would know, decision making takes a lot of time, and it has multiple personas, buyer personas involved, which would include technology, cross-functional teams, business teams, and so on and so forth. So what we did was, once we broadly identified the logos whom we want to be after, we then further deep dived and figured out what kind of people should we target. Not just again the problem is when we talk about people, the first thing comes to mind that we should only target the CXOs. Because they are decision makers, which is the big challenge, because CXOs won't come on a call, they will not necessarily respond to your email. They will ideally would want, even if they, let's say, get an email, if they really are intrigued by it, they will probably give it to their junior or maybe even more junior guy to kind of work on it. So you'll have to define your buying groups, influencing groups to the T, and you can come up with like a buying committee, kind of a roadmap for each account of sorts. So let's say you identified, let's say 10, 15 odd broad designations cross account, and then you realize, okay, 500 companies, 10, 15 designations, so I have a universe of around 5,000, 6,000 people. Okay, I can probably extend it to, let's say, 7, 8,000 people, or maybe 10,000 people, depending on how broad I want to get. So now the whole idea is that how do I find which channel would they be? So considering that we are talking about banking, a lot of this fraternity is on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn becomes a good channel to kind of reach out to them. Email is also something which we can get from sources like Apollo, Tata, and so on and so forth. There are free and there are some basic paid sources. So email and LinkedIn become the lowest common denominator and the comparatively cheapest avenue. When I say LinkedIn, I'm talking about organic LinkedIn.
Okay.
So and in B2B, the whole idea is that what is the reach of your people who are ultimately the sales personnel of the organization, the face of the organization. So people want to follow people and not companies. So what we tried to do was to also improve the profile of the CEO, the sales head, and so on and so forth, give them tips on how they can improve their LinkedIn profile, and start contributing, doing that outreach towards these, the people. So we created a database of these 7,000-8,000 people, included LinkedIn, profiles, and we got an intern to kind of do all that stuff. And after we made that, we shared that profile, shared that database with the and basically earmarked the kind of profiles the CEO will cater to and the other team members will cater to. So it was equally divided, and the whole idea was to engage with these profiles over a period of time. Okay, so that's where the channels and all those things get started.
Very nice. So in fact, you gave a very nice perspective about the importance of ICP, because once you have the ICP correct, right, all the points which you mentioned kind of fall in place. Great. What would be your second comment or second tip for the audience?
Yeah, so second comment again follows from there. So for example, once we've identified that, I was just in fact coming to that. So LinkedIn, becomes a very important platform to start engaging with the audience. So LinkedIn, when I'm talking about LinkedIn, I'm talking about organic content. And the whole idea is that how do we ensure that the CEO's profile or some of the 2-3 key stakeholders profile start delivering in terms of engagement. So we started thinking about what kind of content can we push from these profiles. So the quality of content in maybe video or text format becomes like while it may take a little time for the team to kind of develop and crack that piece, but it becomes a very important part of the entire sales. So the second point, if I were to stress on, would be this particular aspect. How do you create quality content from CXO profiles, and also do this outreach parallelly so that people start engaging on the profile and over a period of time, that starts kind of building into results. Because, and this is more important B2B, because B2B there is no, let's say if your universe is 100, you have only 2-3% of people who are actively looking out for a solution like yours. Okay, so majority of your market is not looking out for a solution. That's where this engagement bit and nurturing bit makes a lot of difference.
Excellent. A very, very relevant point. So what's the third tip which you'd like to share?
So the third tip is, how do we use email as the next best cheaper solution to kind of engage with these prospects. So again, email, while there is no way, you will get, very crazy open rates and click rates for any of your marketing emails. You have to obviously work through it immediately. Nothing will happen immediately and overnight. But in email, the good thing is you can reach out to people individually as compared to other channels. LinkedIn also allows that to some extent, but LinkedIn doesn't have that scale which email has. So email, how do we kind of look at personalizing the messaging and the right from the subject line, which includes the first name, the company name, as well as try to resonate with the person and the company in the email itself. So an ABM kind of an approach can work wonders if possible, if the company can afford that in the sense that not in terms of monies, but in terms of research and content, because that becomes a primary drive for account-based marketing, which is typically a one-to-one or one-to-many marketing in B2B. Okay, so if I can personalize my emails to the extent that they can resonate well with my audience, that is something which I should be focusing on. It could be at the beginning, it could be industry-specific information, but ideally, as the team matures, as they get to understand more about the customer pain points, they should be able to kind of resonate through their email as well. And when I say customer pain points, it has to be buyer persona-led pain points. It's not the same cookie cutter email which goes to everybody in the organization, but a slightly differentiated email for the CTO, the CFO, or maybe other kind of functional departments as such.
Fantastic. So this is very interesting. While you were mentioning about this point, it occurred to me that all of us get such emails, right? And if they are not relevant, we immediately put it as spam, right? And I've seen the same thing even on LinkedIn, because where the content is not relevant at all to whatever you are doing, but still they would send you a LinkedIn invite or a message or things like that. So relevancy improves your credibility as well, is what I would say.
True.
Excellent. So what are the remaining 2 points which you would like to share as tips?
So one of the other points which I would like to share is the fact that how do we use our own customers and our own prospects as content generators for the brand. Okay, you would have seen a lot of companies. These days reach out and create communities, either communities on WhatsApp, Telegram, or so, or doing podcasts and webinars online, wherein they invite people. It's again an unpaid thing. There is no payment involved, but there is some kind of gesture in terms of you are promoting that particular event in your channels and so on and so forth. So the person who's coming as a speaker, feels that there is a kind of sort of an ego massage, saying that okay, I've been called as a speaker, and there's an onus on me to kind of also give good quality content because I'll be heard by my peers and so on and so forth. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, if you do this well, this can be an interesting channel also, which can generate leads, if not immediately, in the due run. And this doesn't really cost much. In fact, it just costs resource time, not necessarily a lot of money as such, if you do it well.
Got it. So would you also advocate joining special interest groups on LinkedIn, or ensuring that industry relevant events or at least virtual webinars or so should definitely be on every marketer's, outbound marketer's calendar?
Yeah, LinkedIn discussion forums, these kind of platforms also make a lot of sense. In fact, one of the interesting things which companies can do, and they do, is look at what competitors are doing, what kind of people are attending their competitors' LinkedIn event, because that audience is kind of a little transparent, and they start targeting them as well. So that's again one of the ways to kind of look at cost effectively reaching out to people who are interested in a particular topic.
Right.
So that is something which, definitely makes a lot of sense.
Very nice, very nice. And what's your last point or last final tip on this topic?
So the last tip would be to, while I said that we have to create content, we have to ensure that we post regularly. Okay, because it's not like sporadic outbursts of content or activity which will work. It has to be very frequent. I mean, frequent as in not every day necessarily, but it should be on a sustained basis. So, in a perfect world, I would typically have content for every day on my LinkedIn posts or on my all those channels. But typically, I would start off with at least 2 to 3 days of posting on LinkedIn, and then grow from there, depending on how much what kind of traction I'm getting. Over a period of time, I'll also get more ideas about content and so on and so forth. But the whole idea is to start somewhere and increase from there. So the quality and quantity of posting also matters, because the good thing about LinkedIn is, your audience, if you have enough traction on your LinkedIn profile, they will start seeing this content on their timeline and feed, and over a period of time, you will get that traction, because this will be in the mindshare of people who are reading that content.
Right. No, in fact, this is also very personal. It kind of resonates personally with me as well, because as you know, this podcast is a side passion project, just something to do for me as a personal developmental growth. And interestingly, because I've been able to have a consistency of having a podcast published every Friday for the last 50 weeks, I've got some good comments as well. For example, there are a couple of folks who kind of reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, we really follow you every week." So anyway, that's a slight diversion. So coming back to this whole point of frugal B2B, marketing, can you share some, use cases or your own experience or insights in which you maybe had a client, you kind of implemented many of these frugal marketing tips, got some astounding results, and also got kudos from the customer who said that, hey, I really saved tons of money out here. Anything you'd like to share?
So one thing which comes to my mind, I think one of the best case studies I've had so far was a anonymized article I wrote on LinkedIn in 2016 for a client which is in the martech space. Martech, as in right now they are in martech, but they are in the they were in the space of doing offline events for organizations to generate leads. Like setting up kiosks in housing societies and so on and so forth. So they were one of the first people to create an organized format. It was a company called Machadalo. Now they are no more in that particular space. They're kind of pivoted to a different model. But back in 2016-17, they were in the space of creating, working with large brands and ensuring that they are able to do these BTL activities or on-ground events, at scale in housing societies and corporate business parks and all. And they had created a complete system which was data driven, wherein they had all the databases and they could give reports of accountability of how many leads or how many things have coming from a particular campaign or an area, which was comparatively new at that point in time. And it was interesting. So I kind of wrote an article anonymized. I didn't mention the name of the company. And till date, it's been 8 years. That article generates at least one or two leads, for them. And I know this because it was an anonymized article, so people reach out to me rather than them to kind of understand more about their business. It kind of ranks on keywords like hyperlocal marketing in societies in Mumbai and so on and so forth. So while the intent was not SEO, but since it was a little more research content and it kind of garnered traction, Google also gave it prominence.
Wow.
So what happened was, through relevant content, and in fact they got one of the biggest edtech clients, which gave them nearly a revenue of 1 crore or more over a period of time through that particular content. So what I'm saying is, that's the power of well-written content. While this was not optimized for SEO, I'm sure that if companies start focusing on content and optimizing for SEO, while SEO is getting more tougher these days, but it still works. So creating quality content definitely kind of works. And this is, I would say that this is one of the best case studies from a single piece of content which I can probably think of.
Excellent. So when you talk of frugal B2B marketing, I'm sure there must be lots of free tools, free AI tools and the like, right? Which people can kind of get used to get started, right? So any tips or any advice on what the marketers should look at?
Yeah, so I personally, my stack is largely driven by, I use a lot of Gen AI. I use Canva, I use, ChatGPT and so on and so forth, for at least getting some ideas around domains which I'm not familiar with. So since I work with clients across multiple domains, ChatGPT, Gemini, they become a savior of sorts to kind of understand what kind of content should we, across personas, at least the first level, so that I can have an informed conversation with the client and then further refine it from there. So it's, I wouldn't like to say it this way, but then I realize my dependency on external copywriters have reduced a lot since the time ChatGPT and these Gemini and these platforms came in. That becomes my go-to platform on a regular basis. Canva is again a lifesaver because it is a great tool to kind of create content, graphics and so on and so forth, which I use for my clients as well as multiple things. And there are multiple other things. You have SEMrush to figure out basic SEO, basic to advanced level, depending on how much you want to get into it, to understand more about what competition is doing and so on and so forth. You have these 3-4 things is something which you can use, but some things which I use daily are these two. I would say Canva and ChatGPT for a regular kind of feedback. And Canva, even premium, is a very cheap resource, just 500 rupees a month. So I guess that's something which definitely every marketer should use.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the misses, because even when you talk of frugal B2B marketing also, I'm sure in your journey there would have been some learnings or some areas where the techniques of frugality did not work. Any insights or anything you would like to share on the misses?
Yeah. So there have been quite a few misses. So see, when it comes to US, especially when companies are targeting US, it is a difficult market, and more so for Indian companies. So the traditional ways which I shared, it may not necessarily work in a geography like US, okay? Because anyways everybody is trying to get a piece of the pie of the US market. So I think over there, I remember quite a few campaigns not working for multiple clients, and then we realized that we need a more of an SDR push as well over there. So apart from marketing, what I've also done is from my curated set of partners, I have roped in some SDR, companies, sales development representative companies, whose primary job is to do an outreach on the ICP and set up appointments for the clients. Something which automation or marketing is kind of difficult to do when it comes to completely, end-to-end setting up appointments. Max, what marketing can do is try and generate top-level MQLs and so on and so forth. But unless there is a nuanced conversation in some cases, that doesn't qualify as a appointment or a sales qualified lead. So that is an area. I mean, and sometimes clients who don't have their expectations set or they're not very clued on, they start confusing marketers with SDRs. So that is something also a notion which I have kind of tried to address, because these two are separate entities. They could complement each other, but you can't expect an SDR work from a marketer and vice versa. So that is an area which I have kind of worked upon in the last few years.
Great. And how's the outlook for 2024 and beyond?
Yeah, so it's a bit challenging time for especially the sector which I'm working with, which is IT, enterprise IT, SaaS, and all. Since you also in the kind of telecom and enterprise space, you also know that right now the market is a bit challenging. So, and especially more so for companies who are targeting overseas markets, not just India. So everybody is kind of waiting and watching as to what will happen in elections in India and the US and so on. So just today in the morning, I was just having a chat with a client who was a bit unsure about how things will go out from the election front and so on and so forth. So while there is definitely hope in certain sectors, for example, data centers as an industry is growing very rapidly because of AI, proliferation of Gen AI and so on and so forth. Some sectors will definitely see an immediate spurt and growth and all. Some sectors will take time to kind of come back from this slightly low point. And I think the outlook from a marketing standpoint is to continue doing these activities irrespective of how the market is right now, because definitely things will change. The idea is that when things change and when people start looking out, are you there in their mind share or not? That's what marketing needs to ensure.
Got it. Excellent, Sonesh. I think this gives a great perspective. And thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in. Do subscribe, share, and like this podcast. Consider giving the podcast a 5-star rating if you like the content. Bye for now. Talk to you soon.